Imagine arriving at Srinagar airfield on October 27, 1947, as Lieutenant Colonel Rai and his troops did. The situation was dire. The air was heavy with tension as the Indian Army landed in Srinagar. The responsibility was colossal, the stakes were high, and the timeline was tight. The troops were led by Lieutenant Colonel Dewan Ranjit Rai, a man of courage and conviction, ready to lead his men into an uncertain battle. The situation they stepped into was more serious than they could have anticipated. The state troops were struggling near Baramulla, a town of strategic importance. Despite the inherent challenges, Rai's troops sprang into action, ready to support their fellow soldiers and protect the region. The men of the Indian Army under Rai's leadership found themselves in the thick of the conflict. They began to comprehend the severity of the situation as they witnessed the struggle of the state troops. The fight was not going to be easy, and the enemy was stronger than they had imagined. The realization of the gravity of the situation did not deter Rai's troops. Instead, it fortified their resolve to protect the land and its people. They stood shoulder to shoulder with the state troops, striving to push back the enemy forces. The fall of Baramulla marked a critical turning point in the conflict. A once vibrant town, Baramulla found itself at the heart of a rapidly escalating conflict, its fall a stark reminder of the dire situation. Despite the valiant efforts of Lieutenant Colonel Rai and his troops, Baramulla fell, casting a shadow over the future of the region. The situation in Baramulla worsened, prompting Rai to urgently request reinforcements from Delhi. The need for more troops and supplies was palpable, a necessity underlined by the growing intensity of the conflict. As they waited for reinforcements, Rai and his troops were not idle. They embarked on a crucial reconnaissance mission, a daring attempt to understand the enemy's positions and movements. This reconnaissance was no simple task. Rai and his men bore the brunt of the conflict, facing a relentless enemy in a challenging terrain. They fought valiantly, striking at enemy positions, but the odds were not in their favor. Forced to fall back, they established a new defensive position closer to Srinagar, a strategic move in the face of adversity. In the midst of this retreat, they carried not just the weight of their mission, but also the burden of their losses. Among those losses was a leader, a soldier, a man of courage, Lieutenant Colonel Rai. He was tragically killed during the retreat, his bravery echoing in the hearts of those left behind. His death was a blow to the morale of the troops, but it was also a spark that ignited a renewed determination to defend their land, their people, and their honor. In the midst of their retreat, tragedy strikes. Lieutenant Colonel Rai is killed. His legacy, however, lived on, inspiring his troops to fight with unyielding resolve in the face of adversity. The fall of Baramulla was a dark chapter in this conflict, but it was also a catalyst for the battles to come. In the thick of retreat, Lieutenant Colonel Rai made the ultimate sacrifice. In the face of an overwhelming enemy force, Rai and his men found themselves in a precarious position. They were forced to retreat, falling back to a defensive line closer to Srinagar. It was during this strenuous retreat under heavy enemy fire that Lieutenant Colonel Rai's commitment to duty and the safety of his men shone through. Rai, a natural leader and a brave soldier, was no stranger to danger. He led his men from the front, ensuring their safe retreat while simultaneously engaging with the enemy. Despite the dire circumstances, he refused to let his resolve falter, and his courage under fire inspired his men to keep going. However, fate had a cruel twist in store. During the retreat, Rai was tragically killed. His death sent ripples of grief through his regiment, but his sacrifice was not in vain. His actions under fire had allowed his men to reach safety and regroup, setting a foundation for the ensuing counteroffensive. Lieutenant Colonel Rai's bravery did not go unrecognized. Posthumously, he was awarded the Mahavir Chakra, India's second highest military decoration. This award served as a testament to his valiant service and his unwavering commitment to his duty and his men. His sacrifice became a beacon of inspiration, a call to arms for his fellow soldiers to rally and stand their ground. In the wake of Rai's death, the Indian Army began its preparations for a large-scale campaign. The loss of such a brave and respected officer was a harsh blow, but it only strengthened the resolve of the Indian forces. They were determined to honor Rai's sacrifice by pushing back the enemy and reclaiming the territory they had lost. As Rai's life ends, the preparations for a large-scale campaign begin. The Indian army, fueled by the memory of Rai's bravery and sacrifice, readies itself to face the challenges ahead. The death of Lieutenant Colonel Rai marks not just an end, but also a new beginning in the fight for Kashmir. In the wake of Rai's death, the Indian Army headquarters gears up for a significant confrontation. The loss of Lieutenant Colonel Rai was a severe blow, but it also served as a catalyst, a call to arms that reverberated through the ranks. The Army headquarters, recognizing the gravity of the situation, began preparations for a large-scale campaign. The urgency was palpable as the Army rallied its forces, calling upon more soldiers, readying them for the fight that lay ahead. But manpower alone would not suffice. They needed weaponry, supplies, and a strategic plan to counter the enemy's advances. And so reinforcements were summoned, men of courage and determination, ready to lay their lives on the line for their nation. These troops arrived by air, defying the odds in a terrain that offered few good landing spots. It was a testament to their skill and determination that they were able to overcome these logistical challenges. But the Army wasn't alone in this endeavor. The Indian Air Force also stepped up, providing crucial air support despite the difficulties presented by the rugged terrain. It was a combined effort, a display of unity in the face of adversity. However, these weren't just days of preparation. These were days of intense fighting, of relentless attacks and counterattacks. The enemy was pushing hard, trying to seize control, but the Indian troops stood firm, refusing to yield. These were the critical days of build-up, a time of immense pressure and relentless activity. It was a race against time, a desperate struggle to fortify their positions before the enemy could make any further advances. Yet despite the odds, the Indian troops held their ground, their spirits undeterred. Every new wave of troops, every supply run, every reinforcement that arrived was a small victory, a step towards turning the tide. It was a battle not just for territory, but for the very soul of the nation. These critical days of build-up lead to a significant battle near Badgam, a battle that would test the mettle of the Indian troops and determine the course of the conflict in the days to come. In the heart of the conflict, a significant battle unfolds near Badgam. This particular skirmish was a pivotal turning point in the narrative of the Kashmir conflict. The Indian troops, despite their challenges, faced the enemy with unparalleled bravery. The courage and resilience displayed by these soldiers were truly commendable. One such braveheart was Major Somnath Sharma, whose valor stood out, even in the face of grave danger. He led his men with a conviction that was both inspiring and formidable. Major Sharma's leadership was a beacon of hope in the dire circumstances, his courage setting the tone for the rest of his unit. But every battle has its casualties. As the fighting intensified, Major Sharma was tragically killed. His sacrifice, however, was not in vain. His bravery and selflessness in the line of duty did not go unnoticed. He was posthumously awarded the Paramvir Chakra, India's highest military honor. This award served as a testament to Major Sharma's extraordinary courage and his dedication to his country. Despite the loss of their leader, the Indian troops continued to fight. Their resolve was unshaken, their determination unwavering. The enemy was relentless, but the Indian soldiers held their ground. Their courage, resilience, and unwavering commitment to their duty were the driving forces behind their eventual victory at Badgam. The Battle of Badgam was more than just a military confrontation. It was a testament to the courage, resilience, and determination of the Indian troops. It was a demonstration of their unwavering commitment to their duty and their country. It was a battle that, despite the odds, they managed to win. As the dust of the battle began to settle, the landscape of the conflict began to change. The Indian troops had proven their mettle in the face of adversity. Their victory at Badgam served as a beacon of hope in the midst of the conflict. But as they basked in the glory of their victory, they knew the battle was far from over. As reinforcements continue to arrive, diplomatic developments begin to unfold. And while the conflict rages on, India begins diplomatic conversations with Pakistan. The intensity of the situation in Kashmir is not lost on India. As more troops keep pouring in to aid in the conflict, India also seeks to open channels of communication with Pakistan. The Indian leadership, recognizing the gravity of the situation, engages in diplomatic discussions with their counterparts in Pakistan. Key figures in these discussions include Sardar Patel and Sardar Baldev Singh, who make a visit to understand the ground realities. Reinforcements continue to arrive, providing much-needed support to the Indian forces on the ground. The Indian Air Force also plays a critical role, providing air support despite the challenging terrain and lack of proper landing sites. This combined effort helps to bolster the Indian defenses and keep the enemy forces at bay. Meanwhile, the directive to hold Srinagar at all costs remains steadfast. Local leaders are engaged and efforts are made to prevent any skirmishes between communities. The focus is on maintaining peace and order within Srinagar while simultaneously defending it against external threats. The Indian forces face numerous challenges, from logistical issues to the harsh climate. However, they are prepared to stand their ground. Major General Kulwant Singh, despite the multitude of problems, shows remarkable leadership in managing the situation. He understands the significance of this battle and is prepared for a long fight. The Indian Army is not only ready to fight, but also ready to stay. They are aware of the long road ahead and are mentally and physically prepared for the duration of the conflict. The troops know that they might have to endure hardships, but their determination to protect Srinagar remains unshaken. Despite the challenges, Major General Kulwant Singh prepares for a long fight. The Indian forces are ready to give it their all. The stakes are high, but so is the spirit of the Indian Army. They are prepared to defend Srinagar, to protect their homeland, and to uphold the values they stand for. Major General Kulwant Singh faces a multitude of challenges as he prepares for the fight ahead. He navigates the treacherous terrain of politics and war, balancing the needs of his troops with the demands of his superiors. Yet, in the face of adversity, Singh demonstrates an unyielding resolve, pushing forward with a clear vision and a tenacious spirit. The preparations for the fight are as strategic as they are complex. Singh and his team meticulously plan every move, considering all possible outcomes. They study the enemy's tactics, identify their weaknesses, and devise ways to exploit them. They also ensure that their troops are adequately equipped and prepared for what lies ahead. This involves rigorous training, both physically and mentally, to ensure that they are ready to face any challenge. Meanwhile, the critical days draw to a close, marking the end of a tumultuous period. The situation in Srinagar has stabilized, thanks to the tireless efforts of Singh and his men. The arrival of more troops provides a much-needed boost to their morale and their ranks. The city is now under their control, and they stand ready to defend it at all costs. However, the end of the critical days does not mean the end of the challenges. Quite the contrary, it signifies the beginning of a new phase in the conflict. The fight to free the valley is far from over. It's a battle that will test the mettle of Singh and his men, pushing them to their limits. But they are ready, they are prepared, and they are determined to succeed. In the face of adversity, Singh's leadership shines through. Despite the challenges, he remains steadfast, keeping his sights firmly on the objective. His preparations are comprehensive, leaving no stone unturned. And as the critical days draw to a close, he stands ready to lead his men into the fight of their lives. The fight to free the valley is about to begin. With troops in place and a plan of attack, the fight to free the valley is set to commence. The Indian forces stationed near Shalateng and the roads to Srinagar were ready and waiting. The original plan was to launch an attack around November 10th, with the expectation of more reinforcements arriving. However, the raiders had a different schedule. In a surprise move, the raiders launched an attack near Shalateng. This unexpected development forced Brigadier Sen to quickly reassess and change the plan. The Indian forces, demonstrating their flexibility and determination, turned this surprise attack into an opportunity. With a revised strategy, the Indian forces counterattacked the raiders from 3 different directions. The Air Force also joined the fray, raining down fire from the sky. This sudden and fierce retaliation caught the raiders off guard, creating chaos in their ranks. The raiders, overwhelmed and frightened, began to retreat hastily, leaving behind a trail of discarded weapons, ammunition, and supplies. In a matter of just 20 minutes, the tide of the battle had turned. The Indian forces had not only successfully repelled the raiders, but had also inflicted heavy casualties. An estimated 500 raiders were left dead, while the Indian forces suffered only minor injuries. With the raiders in retreat, the Indian forces seized the initiative. They pursued the fleeing raiders, reclaiming the town of Patan. However, logistical issues with fuel and trucks caused a brief pause in their advance. Undeterred by November 8th, the Indian forces had also reclaimed Baramulla. In the wake of their victory, the Indian forces begin to reclaim territory and fortify Srinagar. The raiders, scattered and disoriented, left a trail of abandoned weapons and supplies, a testament to the swift and decisive action of the Indian army. In a matter of minutes, the tide of battle had turned and the Indian forces were on the offensive. The city of Patan was the first to be reclaimed. Despite obstacles related to petrol and trucks, the advance was resolute and the city was secured. This was a critical step towards reclaiming the larger strategic point, Baramulla. By the 8th of November, Baramulla too was back under Indian control, a testament to the determination and tactical acumen of the Indian troops. But the victory was not just about reclaiming lost territory. It was also about protecting the areas already under control. To this end, the Indian troops established a defense force, aptly named the Sri Force. The primary objective of this force was the protection of Srinagar, the beating heart of the region. Alongside this, troops were dispatched to other key locations such as Shupian, ensuring a robust defensive network. The 9th of November was a day of consolidation. The Indian forces worked diligently to ensure the safety of the reclaimed areas. The Air Force played a crucial role, launching attacks on raiders' positions and supplies, further weakening their resolve. The reclaiming of territory and the fortification of Srinagar marked a significant victory for India. It was a testament to the courage, tenacity, and strategic brilliance of the Indian forces. More than that, it was a beacon of hope, a signal that the fight was far from over and that victory was within reach. The area around Baramulla is secured, marking a significant victory for India. Yet the conflict in Kashmir was far from over and the road ahead was fraught with challenges. The struggle for peace and stability in the region was only just beginning. With the area around Baramulla secured, the Indian forces can finally breathe a sigh of relief. What followed was a period of consolidation for the Indian forces. They had successfully held off the raiders and managed to secure key areas, but the work was far from over. The victory at Baramulla was significant, but the task of fortifying the region and ensuring its ongoing security was a daunting one. The raiders had been driven out, but the scars of the conflict remained. The Indian forces had to manage not only the physical aftermath of the fighting, but also the psychological impact on the local population. The residents of Srinagar and surrounding areas had endured weeks of fear and uncertainty, and the Indian forces now had the task of restoring their faith and trust. In the wake of the conflict, the Indian army established a defense force called Sri Force to protect Srinagar. This was a crucial step in ensuring the city's ongoing safety. To further bolster their defenses, the Indian forces also stationed soldiers in other key locations, such as Shupian. But while the Indian forces were working to secure the region, the diplomatic wheels were also in motion. India continued its dialogue with Pakistan about the conflict, seeking a peaceful resolution to the situation. The Indian government understood that military victories alone would not bring lasting peace to the region. Meanwhile, the Indian forces faced logistical challenges. Issues with petrol and trucks hindered their ability to advance and consolidate their positions. Despite these challenges, they continued their efforts to fortify the region and ensure its security. On November 9th, the Indian forces focused their efforts on making sure the area around Baramulla was safe. They even utilized the Air Force to attack the raiders' remaining supplies, further crippling their ability to regroup and launch a counterattack. The victory at Baramulla was a significant win for India. It boosted morale among the Indian forces and gave hope to the residents of Srinagar and surrounding areas. But it was also a stark reminder of the ongoing problems in Kashmir.